Morning, everyone. Taft here. Welcome to Speed Tips from my garage in the classroom. Today is episode number 65. Today we're going to talk about why we should have never taught pivoting. Okay, I'm going to go through it, and then we can talk about certainly some of the skills that we've done in the past, like the hip turn, which is more common and just more innate to human movement, especially in reactive sport. Okay, so anyway, a pivot. Other than in the sport of like basketball, where if I catch the ball and I'm not dribbling and I'm trying to move my body, I have to establish one foot that pivots up, and that's okay. That's part of the rules. So we have to be able to do that. Okay. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, whether I'm playing soccer or football or tennis or basketball, certainly. Pivoting is a mistake on multiple levels. Okay, so number one, if I want to, let's say I'm shuffling this way, and all of a sudden I want to turn and go this way. Okay, what we were all taught, including me, was we put our foot down and we pivot on that foot. But if you actually watch an athlete moves, that never works, simply because it fights against laws of human movement. Okay, when my foot touches the ground and I pivot, in order for me to have an efficient and an effective pivot, I am going to create friction. Okay, that's part of pivoting. Your foot's in the ground. So imagine if you're playing a cleat sport. Okay, imagine if you're playing field hockey and you put your cleats in the ground, or soccer and your cleats are in the dirt or in the grass, and you start pivoting. That's not a healthy thing. Okay. Number two, when I pivot, typically the knee stays above. If you notice, my knee is staying above my foot. So if I want to go in this direction, my knee is above my foot. I have no force application angle. So that's a negative, all right? And in order for me to pivot correctly, I typically unlock the ankle and I go to the ball of my foot, because it's really hard to pivot on a flat foot. And you certainly don't pivot on your heel. So you pivot on the ball of your foot. So you unloaded the ankle joint itself, which is bad, okay? So typically what we want to see is, if I'm going to open up quickly, we're going to do what we call a hip turn, which I've already talked about a lot, okay? And here's my issue with this is, even though I know my athletes are going to naturally, even if the coach is teaching pivoting, they're going to naturally go to this when they compete. Because again, we need reactive, that stretch shortening cycle. So when I go pop, there's a stretch shortening cycle. I need the stiffness in order to get that. And I need the angle of force application. Pivoting doesn't give me that. So there's no positives to pivoting, other than if the rules state in that game, if you want to move your body around in that space without traveling, that you need to pivot. Okay, and that makes sense. That's a rule. Okay. So my issue is, if we're going to go ahead and understand that it's going to naturally happen, why would we go back and practice a pivoting move which doesn't relate? They're two different skills. Okay, they're two different techniques. One of them is very explosive, creates great angles, and projects the athlete in the direction you want to go. That would be a hip turn. The other one does none of those. Okay, it keeps them vertical, so there's no force application angle. There's friction, which is slower, okay, as they're turning, okay? And then there's the factor of the fact that if I want to shoot off in a direction quickly, I need that stiffness, which a pivot doesn't, and unlocks my ankle joint, okay? So if you're going to go with your speed camp, speed clinics, or training sessions, and you're going to teach this type of movement, make sure you're teaching reactive hip turn. You're not having them pivot. Pivoting is just much slower. Okay, so this is something you want to introduce. And also, the other reason I did this one and the one yesterday about the crossover is, again, I want ambassadors of speed, philosophy-based training off laws of human movement. If we try to avoid it, we're going to make mistakes in our teaching. So we got to stick to those laws. Okay, guys. Hey, have a great one. We'll see you tomorrow for episode number 66.